Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. This morning's conversation, we're talking about the water supply on the island of Tobago. Now, we know water supply is not only an issue here in Tobago, but a national issue, a regional issue by that account. This morning, as we have that conversation, I have the privilege and the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Brian Williams, who is the head of the Tobago region of WASA. Good morning, Mr. Williams.
Morning, Miss Felix.
Oh, welcome. Welcome to Tobago Updates. You know, you are no stranger to the set here, so we are happy to have you. Now, a lot of persons have been seeing, complaining, and feeling the pain of the water shortage issue here in Tobago. Now, from my own investigation, I realized that the water supply issue is one that we face throughout the region. So, give us a little bit of background information on why this part of the world faces such an issue when it comes to water supply.
All right, morning, Miss Felix. Morning to Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, and the wider world, because we live all over the world. Um, Thank you for having me, first and foremost. The challenges that we face in this moment as Tobagonians, as Trinbagonians, is not localized, and the blame has been put very squarely on the shoulders of the changing climatic conditions associated with the global warming. At this point, we are coming to the end of the dry season. I would have loved to come here this morning and say that the dry season is officially ended, but there still are challenges, and it has been a very harsh dry season. The flows in rivers have, reduced by as much as 80%. Courland Water Treatment Plant does 8,000, 7,500, 8,000 cubic meters a day. It has been doing 1,500 cubic meters. It has been reduced to a stream in this moment. Notwithstanding, as an organization, we have a responsibility to deliver the service within the confines of quality, flows and pressures. It has the harshest of the dry season, which is global, regional, and as for the context, for the purposes of the discussion, local, they have put us in a very precarious position. In the past, we have, and even for this dry season that we are now facing, we do some planning to mitigate against the harsh effects. And let me just share with you some of the things that we would have done. We have a very aggressive groundwater development program across Tobago, because let me just back up and say that we do about 12 million gallons of water per day, and it's about a 50-50 split between surface sources, Courland, Richmond, Kingsby, and groundwater, which are wells that are located across the length and breadth of the island. The groundwater systems supplies have shown to be more robust in their resilience against the dry season, the effects of the dry season. The surface sources, however, and they continue to be a challenge as the dry season progresses. So in our planning process, what we are doing, we have embarked on a wells development program where we are aggressively investigating and drilling new wells to ensure that during the dry season months, we are able to sustainably provide a supply to mitigate against the climatic changes and the need as it arises and it increases from dry season to dry season, year to year.
Right, and the current water reservoirs that we have, some of them are way past below 50% of its usual water availability. Talk to us about the different water supply treatment plants throughout the island and their capacity, the true reason for the low water supply throughout the island.
All right. Hillsborough Dam in Mount St. George is our biggest impounding reservoir. It has a carrying capacity of around 250 million imperial gallons impounded in that reservoir. The requirement in our management plan, the requirement is that at the start of the dry season, at the end of the rainy season, January 1, we attempt to ensure that all the reservoirs are filled, and the abstraction is managed to allow us to get to the end of the dry season with reserves to last us through. right? So the management begins from day one. The challenge that we have had is that the dry season, the days have been hotter than they usually are. The nights have been hotter than they usually are. So that the increased evapotranspiration associated with that, and let me say this, we have some aging infrastructure which presents us with a leakage problem, which we are aggressively working on to change, one, to eradicate leaks and bursts, and to change out aged and decrepit infrastructure, ensure that we have the availability, we can get the water from the source to the customer. So I was saying the Hillsborough Dam, at this point, we are 40% filled. The long-term, we're way below the long-term average. The good news with our sources in Tobago is that in one day of good rain, a lot can change. We have another small impounding reservoir at Kings Bay, that we are also suffering the adverse effects of the unavailability by virtue of the extended dry season there. So the customers in that area are also suffering. The surface sources, the two major surface sources that we have are the Corland River and the Richmond River. Corland supplies Southwest Tobago from Plymouth all the way to Crown Point. Right, so allow me to chat about Corland first. It is very strategically important for a number of reasons. The first is that it supports one of the highest population dense areas in Tobago. That whole strip from Plymouth, Blackrock, all the way down to Crown Point. Its importance is highlighted by the fact that it's also a tourism belt. We also have a lot of critical infrastructure, the airport, a number of schools, hospitals, hotels. We do 1.5 million gallons of the Corland water treatment plant on a daily basis. We are down to 1,500 and 2,000. It is really bad. Our ability to meet and treat with the challenges that we have, let me just backtrack and say this to you, have been assisted by, as I started by talking about our aggressive wells development program. We have, through the Ministry of Public Utilities and the Minister, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, we have developed a number of well sources. Well, we have a well in the Battle area. We have 3 wells. We have equipped one, and we are in the process of equipping 2 more. They have contributed to allowing us to not be as far down as if we didn't have them. Additionally, the development program last year, you would remember, we'd have done 7.6 kilometer transmission line from Signal Hill to Crown Point, which connects the well fields. You know, we have wells along the highway, Bishop's High School, Culler Hall, Bacalet, Government Farm. It allows us to connect this supply into the Crown Point area to provide relief from this side. We had some challenges during the late part of the dry season, in that when we attempted to utilize the line was adjacent to the highway that is being developed to Crown Point, and the line was damaged. So we suffered a little setback by virtue of it being damaged in the works that were happening along in the development of the road. We have since gone in, we have repaired it, and I would just like to say, before I say, well, I'd like to say thank you to the team that worked tirelessly to get it repaired in 5 days. But more importantly, the need and request for chalkboard in the Crown Point area, from the commissioning and beginning of operation of the line, they have fallen away from an average of 32 requests for chalkboard per day. We're down to 2. Right? I mean, facts don't lie. And it is important, and this speaks to the organization's attempt to plan and operationalize projects, programs, and projects to ensure that we can meet the ever-increasing demand for the supply across all climatic and regular and anomalies, to ensure that we can deliver.
Right, but although the Crown Point Western area is a highly population dense area, you have the rural areas that are really, really suffering, and we have the people up in the north side, as well as Charlottesville, that tend to suffer the most because they are on the higher points of the island, right? And so even when the water levels are low, a lot of the times they even though the water is there, they can't get it because they're so high up that the water isn't pumping up to meet them. So these are the places that we have a higher demand for the truck-borne water supply. But we also know that the trucks are so big that sometimes it's difficult for them to get up to those places. So what are some of the strategies to mitigate against that?
Thank you so much for bringing me to that point, Ms. Felix. The challenge that we have, you did a very good job in articulating what the challenges are. And again, let me start at the top. The areas in East Tobago, Charlottesville, Speyside, Delaford, they are limited in our ability to provide an alternate source of supply. And you are correct. In attempting to mitigate and to plan with a view to sustainable development and operations in the future, especially in times like now, we have earmarked a number of projects to speak to that. There are plans for a desalination plant in Charlottesville that are on the drawing board that will allow for us to bring a continuous, sustainable year-round supply to Charlottesville. There are also plans that that we're still working on for other areas, Speyside and those areas that don't have an alternate supply. We are also in the process of investigating the installation of similar plants. The Charlottesville plant is scheduled to be installed by the end of this calendar year, so that by the start of the dry season next year, we will have an alternate supply for Charlottesville. There is also, we're talking about projects, there is the Goldsboro water, there's a water treatment plant being constructed at Goldsboro to provide an additional 2 million gallons of water off the Goldsboro River, which is one of our more robust and sustainable rivers year-round. That will also aid in bringing relief to the people in the Tobago East. So there are, while I would have started with Crown Point, thank you for bringing me back into focus, there are plans for improvements across Tobago, right? So as it relates to the Tobago East, the Charlottesville desalination plant is scheduled to start this year, and the Goldsboro water treatment plant is also scheduled to start and be completed within this calendar year, which will put us at in a very good place as we approach the oncoming 2025 dry season.
Right, and for those persons who do not understand what desalination is, that has to do with treating seawater, right? Give us a little bit of understanding the background of that one.
All right. Desalination is the process where you utilize seawater and convert it into potable water. It is a growth environment in this moment because traditionally there have been a lot of challenges associated with the process of desalination. For example, in the early days, the desalination takes salt water, you take fresh water out of it, and the concentrated salt water that remains is the byproduct. In the past, ecosystems were damaged by virtue of this brine is normally discharged out into the ocean.
Oh, but the excess salt.
Right, that is a highly concentrated, that is brine now. And one of the challenges that came with the desalination back in those days is that the salt normally would damage if it makes its way back onto the coastline, would damage those aquatic ecosystems. Added to which, because the technology was relatively new, the cost to install and maintain was much higher. We are in a place now where the technology has gotten cheaper and more efficient. As an example, in our investigation for the desalination in Charlottesville, what we're looking at is utilizing saltwater wells, where we drill a well down into the saltwater layer underground, we abstract from there, and on the same premises, in the same vicinity, we drill another well, a deeper well, and we discharge the concentrated brine back into the saltwater underground water table. What that also does, one of the challenges that desalination has, especially in the Caribbean region, is combating the new threat of the sargassum that floats in every so often without warning and wreaks havoc on our coastal or beaches and the other coastal landscapes. It also affects the desalination plants across the region, because those plants have the design, they have an intake that is out in the open water. So the sargassum normally comes in and gets into their intake mechanism and prevents the plant from operating as it should. The challenge, the process that we are looking at for the installation in Charlottesville and wherever else in Tobago is it's immune to that by virtue of the fact that the abstraction for the desalination process could be coming from down in the salt water. So there is a certain reliability that is associated with the way we now plan to operate, because you have to also bear in mind, right, that while Charlottesville and the other areas where we are looking at doing the desalination require a reliable, consistent, stable supply year-round, we are also a tourist environment, and we also have a lot of people who depend on these beaches and the waters surrounding them for their livelihood, fishing and the other things. So you have to ensure that what we do is in keeping with the need to be as environmentally sustainable, as possible.
Right, but even as we wait for the development of the desalination plant in Charlottesville, we're talking present day. What are we doing as of today to help relieve the situation within that Charlottesville, Speyside, North Side area because of the limitations in offering the truck-borne water supply?
All right, let me tell you what we have done. You started by speaking to the size of the trucks that we have and the inability to maneuver the roads and the hillsides up in the country, and that is correct. What we have done in order to offset that is that we have increased the fleet of water trucks that we have, utilizing the smaller 1,000 gallons and 1,200 gallons, provided and procured locally from small business entities across the Tobago environment to ensure. So we have increased the fleet, and we have smaller trucks that now can speak to the maneuvering into and around these areas to ensure that we get a supply to these people. And we have also partnered with the fire services. We have adjusted the schedules to these areas to reflect what we can deliver. And we are partnering with the fire services in those areas we have identified. For example, in Luciville, the high point customers. And what we do, we truck to the high point customers at the start of the schedule, and we operate the schedule so that the need for holding the schedule as long as we would have normally to feed these customers is eliminated. And at the end of the schedule, those customers who didn't get, we try to truck them off. So the one solution that you have at our disposal in this moment is the water trucking. And to speak to the efficiency and effectiveness of the process, we have engaged smaller trucks, higher numbers. We have spoken to the fire services whose appliances and the hoses and things are better equipped in some instances to get to some of these customers, because some of them are like some eagles, live to the top of some hills. Notwithstanding, you have a requirement once you have a connection to provide them with a supply. So that is where we are as it relates to bringing relief to the people in Tobago East.
Right. And we're going to take a break. But before we get into the break, one of the questions that I have is, does WASA plan to ever initiate a grant that assists with individuals buying pumps? Because, I mean, a pump is an addition. It's not a requirement when it comes to residential water supply. So if persons now, because of the water supply situation, are forced into buying pumps for their homes, is there any plans, or are there any plans in the future to initiate maybe a grant to assist homes in purchasing a pump?
Let me see this. The Water and Sewage Authority is very heavily invested in ensuring that we are able to meet our mandate as it relates to providing the customer base in Tobago and wider Trinidad and Tobago with a potable supply. The access to potable water has been deemed a fundamental human right. There are national programs where there are government subventions for water tanks, making water tanks available. I do believe you have access to that program here. And we are, by all means, willing to be part of any discussion, including the one that you mentioned as it relates to the water pumps, that would speak to our efficient increased ability to provide a supply to any and all customers, independent of the geographical location, right? And even the financial standing, because there are programs that speak to providing a water supply to people who might be financially disaffected and are unable to buy one by virtue of one way or the other. Right? We have, as an example, we have the Community Water Investment Program, another initiative of the Honorable Minister and the Ministry, where we look at areas that have challenges in receiving a supply, and we are doing programs and projects to ensure that we improve the level of service that we provide to them. For example, right in Tobago, the top of French Fort wasn't getting water all the time. We installed some boosters. French Fort getting water almost all the time now. In Pine Hill in Palliative, they used to get water in the night now and then. We have installed a booster under the same community water improvement program. And they get water all the time. They call me to say, listen, the line busting up here, and you have some people living higher up who are outside of the area. So you are now in the process of installing some means because they didn't see the need to. People they were using rainwater harvesting and those other things up in the forest because the water couldn't reach. So we're now in the process of extending the infrastructure to ensure that these people can receive the benefit of all the infrastructural upgrades you're providing to bring the service to their doorstep and to their water tanks and to their pumps.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we're going to be back right after this.
It's a brand new morning, rise up the favor to wake up and...
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. We continue our conversations with Mr. Brian Williams, who is the head of WASA here in Tobago. And as we continue the conversation, we're talking about the roadways and the infrastructure. The last time you were here with Minister Gonzalez, and you guys were discussing the state of the roads in Tobago. Now, he would have expressed that he was totally dissatisfied with the state of the roads and promised to fund WASA in a way that would allow you guys to help with recovering or resurfacing a number of the roads that you disrupt while you try to fix a number of those lines along the roadway. So what is the status of that financial investment that he promised Tobago?
All right. Ms. Felix, I'd just like to start by saying, from the time the Honorable Minister was here till now, we have spent $5 million on road restoration in Tobago. $5 million. He had committed to providing and showing that funding was available to effect road restoration activities, and it left us with a requirement to put the systems, procedures, and processes in place to ensure that this can be done. We have an onboard contractor, and if I may say so, I am pleased with the operation. It is very structured, it is very effective, it's very efficient. How we try to approach it is that we target an area, we go into Mount Pleasant, and everything that has been disturbed in Mount Pleasant, we go in and we deal with it. To ensure the added effectiveness and efficiency of the process, if during the process that another leak spring up in the area, we deploy the teams to ensure that all the leaks are repaired so that when the contractor leaves an area, right, we have full coverage, right? The funding continues to come, the contractor continues to work, and our image as it relates to the damage that we effect to the roadways that is left at the mercy of the THA and the unsuspecting public who have to use these roads every day, we work on it, and we are heading in the right direction based on the evidence and by feel based as a driver who on the road all the time.
Right. And are there any collaborations happening between WASA's resurfacing project and what is happening at the Division of Infrastructures, Quarries and Urban Development?
At this point, I would like to say no, but I want to also add that we are always available for any/all collaborative efforts and activities that, in my mind, redound to the benefit of Tobago. Right? For example, the challenges we had in Southwest as it relates to our inability and the pipe that was damaged. Had we known earlier that it was damaged, we would have been able to put the repair effort in place much faster and prevent and maybe prevent the extended period for which the extremities, component and environs were suffering. I would like us to work more collaboratively, and I welcome it. And as soon as it can happen, I do welcome it. I think that is best about
So
it.
has the conversation been happening? Because I know that previously there was an MOU that was in the works between WASA and the THA to collaborate on how road resurfacing would be done moving forward.
The conversations have not been happening at this point on the front end. But what I can see is that in the unofficial deliberations that I've been having with different people at the governing level in Tobago, it has been raised. And as it relates to the MOU, the fact that while the MOU has not been acted upon or refreshed or revitalized, the road restoration drive continues at pace as was promised by the Honorable Minister when he came here. And as I said before, to date, from his last visit when he made the commitment to now, we have spent $5 million. And as a user of the road, and I'm sure the visiting, they might not even know it's WASA that doing all this work here, because they're just realizing that the thing's patching. I have no problems in not knowing that we are fixing it. But the point is, we are aggressively involved in repairing the roads post-haste once the leaks have been repaired, right? I should also mention, you didn't ask me about it, but I think it is also important that I mention that at this point, we are on a very aggressive leak repair drive, and our leaks in this moment have gone down from 70s and 80s and 90s. We are in the 30s. And by the end of the week, we are expected to be in the 20s. Now, having said that, it's important that I let you know that leak repair is a dynamic activity, because they always have leaks and bursts, especially in a scheduled environment, as we are now attempting to shift around a little bit of the resource that we presently have to meet and treat with the needs of the entire Tobago. But we are working aggressively to ensure that all the things that speak to providing a service and improving our corporate image and the general public feel for WASA, that we are working to ensure that we put it in the right place.
Right, and the world is moving ahead speedily. We see AI technology and a number of technologies that continue to pop up in all sectors. What has WASA Tobago been doing to be a part of that global technological drive towards providing services at a higher level?
All right, I am glad that you asked that. In terms of this technological revolution that is happening globally, we have not allowed ourselves to be left behind. We are heavily involved in remote operations and SCADA. SCADA is supervisory data, the supervisor control and data acquisition, where at the location, especially the new projects that we are embarking upon, we are putting instrumentation in so that we can, in real time, monitor the operations, right, of these stations. And in addition to that, we have also embarked on, we are in the process of rolling out the installation of automated actuation valves, where we can sit in a control center, and based on the need that we will have identified in real time from this SCADA infrastructure that we put in, we can operate a valve. We could press a button and close a valve. So we are very much involved in the technology. We are, in short order, about to start a rollout of customer cadastre in Tobago, where we will have people on the ground going out and digitizing accounts and locations and meters, where when a concern is raised, you can pull up a screen and say, oh, this is Miss Felix, this is exactly where she lives. This is the challenge that she's having, because the meter is saying that she has not been having water and there's water in the area. So maybe there's a choke on a line, please check it. These are some of the things that we are working on a day-to-day basis. Even closer to home is that in the next week or two, we are embarking upon a system where the people who go out in the field, the technical officers who are responsible for verification of leaks, will be given tablets, and they will have the responsibility of, because normally the challenge you have with leaks, I will see a leak here, and I will say the leak by the lamppost in Lambo. Miss Felix will call in and say it's a leak next to the fire hydrant. A third person go past and says a leak by the blue gate, when in truth and in fact it's the same leak. What that has done over the years is that you have duplication and triplication and multiplication of sometimes the same report, which we had sometimes. So the data that you have sometimes is not a true reflection of what is. What this process does is that it allows, once you geotag it, so the identifier geotags the leak, and it goes onto a system. That begins the whole process of tracking from being a leak to being repaired up to the point of road restoration. So we are very heavily invested in technology, and technology from not just on the back end in terms of collecting data, but on the front end from the standpoint of using technology to make our work more reliable, easier, more real time. So we are, from a monitoring standpoint, the people out on the road, when the turncock's operating a valve now, we now have, they also will be given tablets to say, okay, this particular valve, when they turn it, they log it, valve fully opened. So the system, right, so that is recorded. And all of this data is being brought to a central point, and excuse me, and one of the ultimate expected outputs is that we will generate an entire transmission distribution map that can be monitored and operated and dealt with in real time, based on the fact that we can have information coming to us in real time. So we are very heavily invested in technology.
Right. And when it comes to overall collaboration with the THA to ensure that Tobago is fully supplied and all the needs are met, you guys currently do have a relationship with the Division of Settlements and Public Utilities.
Yeah, we do. We do have a relationship, and like with all relationships, at times it needs work. And I do agree. I would be the first to say that it can be better, but you open to counseling and all the other things. The interactive requirements of any healthy relationship, we are open to it.
Excellent. And one of the things that continue to come up in regards to allowing for sustainable water supply is the meterization of water supply to individual households. Is that something that is planned for the future? And how is that going to be done in regards to the rates that we currently pay for water?
All right. As it relates to metering, there is, as we speak, an metering exercise that is targeting commercial customers at this point, where we're installing meters for commercial. That is an ongoing program, and this is the flagship, the pilot. It starts. All the other programs will follow, because yes, the organization is heading towards metering so that we can speak to consumption. One of the benefits of metering, for me, that is maybe an intangible, is that it gives us some autonomy and some access in an area that we generally don't have. As WASA, our responsibility ends at the boundary to the customer's property. And because now domestic customers especially, are billed not by consumption, but by a number of different parameters, annually, the value of property, a number of different things. Consumption is not tied. What you have to pay is not tied to consumption. A meter, in my mind, will change that, because the consequence of that is this: because you're not paying for what you use, you have people's tanks overflowing, they're not worried about it. Right? Now, for me and for us as WASA, there are a number of negatives associated with our ability to do a job when you have tanks overflowing. For example, when John's tank at this point is overflowing and he lives at the bottom of the hill, it prevents the people at the top of the hill from being able to get the supply that they have to get, because the pressures can't develop sufficiently for the water to reach up the hill, as an example. When metering, with the advent of metering and paying by usage, people will now start to pay attention to these things, right? So it is a benefit. And the thing about metering from an organizational and a planning perspective is that when you meter everybody, you have a real identification of what the usage is. Because even now, even now in all the planning processes, the figures that are used in planning to decide on, let's say you have a development, and the figures 583 liters, those are estimated figures that have traditionally been there. Having a meter, will now be able to speak to the process with some more accuracy. For example, you have an area and you have a development, you can use a meter and say, listen, people in this area generally use 200 liters of water as opposed to the 5. So in our planning process, we know that we had to cater for the 70 households by the 200. So it helps in the planning process, and it helps is a management tool in providing information for large-scale planning. We producing 12 million gallons. When you add up everybody meter, people get 9 million gallons, so you have a 3 million gallon deficit somewhere outside that we have to fix it. So metering, as far as I'm concerned, is important, is an important tool in the development and the improvement of the organization's effectiveness and efficiencies in meeting the mandate.
Right, I guess as well as the profitability of WASA, which has been in question for a very long time.
Well, the thing about profitability is, profitability, yes, from the standpoint of being more effective and efficient in having the resource. But in terms of speaking to changes in our rate, those processes are driven by the RIC, who would now be the Regulated Industries Commission, so you would have the organization would have to make a case, and they would have to satisfy a number of preset criteria before that discussion can happen. So yes, ultimately it will, but as far as a rate increase goes, it's not up to us to say, listen, we're going to increase the rate tomorrow.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we will be back right after this.
Wow.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. I continue to have my conversation this morning with Mr. Brian Williams, who is the head of WASA here in Tobago. And as we wrap up our conversation this morning, we're talking about community outreach and community engagement and the ability of WASA to let you know whenever there's going to be a shortage in your water supply. So not only is there an issue with the water supply, but we want to ensure that persons know or are aware of whenever there is a shortage in their water supply. So what has WASA been doing to ensure that they continue that ongoing community engagement?
All right, thank you again, Ms. Felix. We have a very active outreach in each platform. We have a customer service center. We are in the process of doing some optimization works to ensure that our ability for the customer's ability to reach us and for us to respond in as real time as possible is optimized. So we are in the process of speaking to that. We have social media, we have a Facebook, we have a WhatsApp chat. All the information is available on our WASA website, and there are interactions between people who in the community and the representatives, senior people in the community, and our corporate communications department in Tobago, which is led by Miss Giselle Webster, our manager, regional manager, as it relates to those operations. So there is a healthy and interactive and ongoing interaction with members of the public, and I want to take this opportunity to urge people, the wider Tobago, to let us know what is happening. Let us know what you feel when you feel it, because it is only by you holding our feet to the fire that we can do better. And I do appreciate, and we do appreciate, any and all attempts, efforts to communicate on any subject, no matter how seemingly trivial or seemingly funny it is, for want of a better set of words. So whenever, give us a call. Our lines are available, or we are open. The lines are on the website, and I'm not sure that there are very many people left in Tobago who don't have my number as it relates to water. Give me a call. I am always open for any discussions as it relates to providing you, us, anybody with any kind of response that they need as it relates to the Water and Sewage Authority's operations in Tobago. I want to just close that by the question by saying that we are in the process as it relates to community activities that Ms. Felix would have asked me about. We are in the process of starting a rainwater harvesting program at schools across Tobago and the wider Trinidad and Tobago. And for this to happen, it will require a certain amount of collaboration with the schools, 2, engagement of the local contractors, and a number of different things that all speak to communication with a view to improving the delivery of the service and the quality of life at Tobago and Tobagonians. So we are very heavily involved and invested in community and in people. Hope that answers your question.
It does. And finally, as we close off our conversation here this morning, what about education campaigns to educate the public on water conservation? Are you guys willing to collaborate with the THA in order to offer an island-wide education campaign on ways that individuals can sustainably use the water on an individual level?
Yes, thank you for that question, Ms. Felix. I cannot say it enough. I welcome any and all interactions with any arm of the Tobago House of Assembly which are aimed at and geared towards improving the quality of the lives of us as Tobagonians. So any/all programs, any interventions that are in the idea stages that you feel we need to discuss, any department, we are open, we are available, and we are very willing to be part of the discussion and the associated works to make whatever the ideas are a reality.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, this is where we end off our conversation this morning. We want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for liking, sharing, and adding your comments. And thank you for doing all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, we want to say thank you to the team over at WASA, as well as Mr. Brian Williams for sharing their time with us this morning. Guys, we want to thank you and say have a great day.